Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jacob Rudner here alongside Noah Cameron and Ariel Putterman, and welcome to this week's episode of dTSPN. So the MLB season is finally here after a long offseason in spring training, and we finally have an opportunity to talk about the great offseason that we got to watch happen and unfold with so many big players and small players, moving teams, staying on the same teams, injuries, all these kind of things, and it has really shaped up to what's going to be a great MLB season. But really what we should be talking about here is the big name players that have moved from one team to another, and I think that the perfect person to start that list off is David Price. He is now the highest paid player in the MLB and the highest paid pitcher in MLB history. And this guy is a great pitcher, and he's about to make this Red Sox team a whole lot better. What do you think?
I think this is a huge move for the Red Sox. Last year, David Price was on the Tigers. At the trade deadline, he moved over to the Blue Jays. He helped them march into the playoffs. Now on the Red Sox, it looks like he can do the same thing I did with the Blue Jays. The Red Sox already had the hitting. They have Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, David Ortiz. They would have a lot of young talent, but now they're in need for a good pitcher. David Price is the ace on that team. I think he can help them maybe get close to the playoffs, maybe even get in the playoffs.
So my next question is with this David Price move, and this is huge, and we have David Price on this team, and we have the decent spotty pitching that they had before them and the not-so-good bullpen, but now you have this number one ace. Is this going to change the dynamic on the hitting side? Because they did have good hitting last year.
I think that their hitting will be really good. You could see a resurgence in Hanley Ramirez this year, maybe. You could see Mookie Betts, of course. You could see Xander Bogaerts, Brock Holt. You saw a few glimpses of him last year. And then when you take a good team and you add an ace, you make it a better team all around. So I think that will be the case for the Red Sox.
So also, if we look along the free agency line throughout this past offseason, there are a lot of other people that did move teams, including John Lackey, Ben Zobrist, Jason Hayward, Shelby Miller. He was traded. It wasn't exactly a free agency move, but it did happen during the offseason. We have Zach Greinke going from the Dodgers to the D-backs, Johnny Cueto, Jeff Samardzija, Scott Kazmir, Kenta Maeda, and the list goes on. I mean, this is a lot of people. Is this going to change the dynamic of the league, or is this just one of those things that happens every year and we're going to see the same old MLB?
I think this is going to change a huge dynamic because the Cubs, for example, they were a good team and all they did is get better. They added Jason Hayward for the outfield. They added John Lackey for their pitching staff to go along with Jake Arrieta and John Lester. They added Ben Zobrist who can play infield or outfield, and they just got all around better. Now in the NL West, the Diamondbacks made some moves, the Giants made some moves, the Dodgers made some moves. This is going to be huge. The Diamondbacks got Greinke and Shelby Miller. They gave up a lot, but they're thinking they can win now. The Giants got Cueto and Samardzija to help their pitching staff. The Dodgers lost Greinke, but they got Kazmir and they got Maeda. So every team in the NL West, besides the Rockies and Padres, the top three teams, they each made big moves. So now the Diamondbacks could compete for the title, the Giants and the Dodgers could compete, and this is going to really shape up the league.
So really here, if we look back at what happened last week, there were a few analysts and insiders that got together and they made their predictions for who was going to come out and win each division. And the Dodgers were not up on that list as much as they would have liked to have been, as they were in seasons past. So really now we're seeing a lot more Diamondback and Giant. Can we expect the Dodgers to come out and win this one even though they're not so much expected to, or are we going to see more of a wild card performance?
I think we can definitely see them win first if they stay healthy, because they've been battling injuries this offseason already. And the Giants and D-backs just got better. So if they can manage to win games, stay healthy, then I think they'll win this division.
And you think?
I think the Dodgers could come on top, like you said, as long as they stay healthy. But also, I'm not sure how Cueto and Samardzija will do as the 1-2 punch for the Giants. They're good pitchers, don't get me wrong, but I see Samardzija more as a 3 or 4. And Cueto, he could be really good. He could also be really bad at sometimes. And for the Giants, for the Diamondbacks, they gave a lot of money to Zach Greinke. And if he comes out how he did last year, they could be in business. But if he does not play as well he played last year, which I don't see him doing now that he's a little older, maybe not as much this year, but in a few years, it could be a problem for the Diamondbacks.
So moving on, we are going to talk about, for those of you who do not want to watch baseball but would rather play it online, we have some fantasy predictions here for people that you should either add now to your teams or add them later. And we have two guys. We have a pitcher and a hitter, and I think it's most important we start out with Phillies power hitter and base stealer Mike Alfranco.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of him last year. 282 batting average, a couple home runs, a couple RBIs, and this was just his rookie year. This year in spring training, he's up that. He's leading the major league in home runs and RBIs, and he's looking like a really promising player for the league.
Anything about him?
He's really good. He has a lot of potential. It seems like he's a huge power hitter. He'll hit a lot of home runs for you. I'm not sure how his defense is for the Phillies itself, but for fantasy-wise, he seems like a great player.
And for me, I think that if you guys were to look into getting Mike Alfranco, I would either trade for him or grab him off waivers now, because this guy is expected to explode right away. He's not one of those guys that's going to sleep deep into the season. I mean, this guy is primed and ready to go now. So if I were you, I'd make your move before something big happens with him. He's already looked good in spring training, so it's going to be even that much harder. Don't let it get harder for yourself. Get Maikel Franco now. So for pitching, we have a less get now kind of person, more of a you can wait on this person if you want to risk it, and being Raisel Iglesias, the young pitcher on the Reds, who has recently announced he's going to be the opening day starter on the Reds, which is huge for him in fantasy stock. But is he somebody that we should be going after now or wait a little while?
I mean, yes, you can go after him now, but do not expect much from him at first. He's really good. He will be good later in the season. Right now, it will take him some time to get into it. I think if you get him right now, you should not expect much out of him, but in a few months, he'll be really good.
And he's also one of those guys that I think you can't go wrong. You can either get him now or get him later. I think that he is a strong baseball player. They clearly called him up, and letting him start on opening day is also a huge sign that they see something in him too. So really, if I were you, I'd maybe consider going after him now. I wouldn't be in a rush to go get him. He is young. In my opinion, he's probably going to be up and down between the minors and the majors this year just because he's such a young and inexperienced player. But really, I think that he's somebody you can go either way with. Moving on in our program, we are going to talk about the award predictions for the end of the season. It's a little early, but why not? So, before the season starts, who do you have for Rookie of the Year?
For NL, I have a Dodger not named Corey Seager at Kenta Maeda. He's a strong pitcher out of Japan. I think he'll be able to throw some pitches that the American players have never seen, so I see him having a great year. For the AL, I have A.J. Reed. He's a Houston Astros power-hitting first baseman. I expect when he comes up, a lot of home runs and a lot of power.
So, can you tell us a little bit what you think about Cy Young?
Well, for Cy Young, I think that Kershaw will win it in the NL just because he's the best pitcher in the league, best pitcher in the world maybe. And he's just going to improve on what he's been doing the last few years. And then for the AL, I have Chris Sale because last year we didn't really see him as much because he was battling injuries, but when we did see him, so many strikeouts, so many wins, and he's on a decent White Sox team that will use him a lot.
And for me, for the MVP award, I really like to look at who had the best season last year and who has the potential to have another one of those. And for me, the guy for the NL MVP, Kershaw. I think Kershaw is not only a Cy Young candidate, but when he wins that Cy Young, it's going to be the same kind of numbers that are going to apply to an MVP award, making him a clear candidate to win that. And for the AL, I have to go with Mike Trout. He's one of the best batters in the league. He's undoubtedly had the best past few seasons, and I don't see anything short of that this year for Mike Trout. So I have him winning AL MVP. Next, we're going to talk about a few bold predictions we're going to make for this season. If you guys want to go around real quick and just say something bold and strange that you guys might think happened this season, kicking it off with you.
All right, I got a bold one. I'm saying the defending champions, Kansas City Royals, do not make the playoffs. Now, here's why. Last year and the year before, they've had an average team. They've worked well together. They've meshed, but they don't have a good ace. They have Edinson Volquez as their ace. He's not a strong ace. Their hitting is kind of their Lorenzo Cain's their best player. I don't expect an MVP type season from him. I just don't see the Royals clicking as well as they have been.
But if you really look at the last few seasons, you can see that Average won the World Series. Average won the World Series last year and made it to the World Series the year before that, and that team hasn't changed at all.
I just feel like with all this offseason moves, the Tigers who are in their division, they got Upton, they got Justin Upton, they got Jordan Zimmerman, and the teams around them have got better. The Royals have stayed the same, and maybe just since they've stayed the same, they have not had the same firepower. They don't have the ace, like I said. They don't have any top players. I think that will hurt them.
But don't you think it's a little bold to think that a team that went from the best record in the MLB, winning the World Series, is going to go from World Series to nothing?
I just think it's because of what happened around them. I mean, the AL has gotten better. The AL East is really strong, so I can see the 2 wild cards coming out of there. And then if they don't win their division, I don't see them making the playoffs.
Very interesting. And moving on to you.
I think that the Pirates will finish with the worst record in the NL, and this is why. They have, besides Garrett Cole, who's actually hurt right now, they have no good pitchers, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And batting-wise, they have McCutchen, Marte, and that's it. So I don't think they have enough talent on their team to even do well this year.
So that is going to move us on to our last subject of the day, and that's going to be super quick. World Series predictions. Who do you have in the World Series, and who do you have winning?
I have Dodgers over Astros.
And you?
I picked the Giants over the Royals. It's an even year.
For me, it's going to be Dodgers, Blue Jays, and Blue Jays are taking this year's World Series. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this week's episode of dTSPN. Make sure to tune in later for more episodes, and we will see you later.